I'm going to tell everybody in school, if you want to see my dad on YouTube, to say on it, the tape never lies. Go shit in the hat.
Yes.
For Lord Cars.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Man to the people.
You know it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive.
Analytical preparation, that's what cars is given. Cars don't discriminate, teaching the men and women. Each and every week, BearsNerd to get your focus. Never manipulating stats, lore, cars and hocus pocus. Cars, keys, they're never lost. Checking source, never gonna find a better scouting report. Cars going live with the smartest man, my bestie. Deciphering holes on the defense like Getsy. New show, uniforms, orange with the dark sea. Tape never lies, patrons, this is Cars
You know
Keys.
it's Cars Keys. Let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive. We gotta break down tape like detectives. No hot takes, just real football perspectives. The BearsNerd dropping science on his terms. TTNL giving Bears press like a perm. Other networks is off with the heads. Stats plus film equals football cred. Analysis like Data Ted tries to shred. McCaskey's letting me cake, we keep the 100 crew fed. Cars keys, let's get it started up. Give me the car keys. Lakeshore Drive. Blog boys drive away with our texts like car thieves. Break down, we study tape and thrive. Lord Hines in his car, fill up a goblet. Lord Hines in his car, fill up a goblet.
I don't know why we have that dramatic pause all of a sudden. I guess we're on Claudio time. Cars Keys Season 2, Episode 25. The losing streak remains. But we're back. You guys ready to go? I know somebody that's in the green room right now. He's not eating the food. He had a couple brownies before we hit the go live button, so he's ready to go. My partner in crime over there. Let's get into this. Let's bring him out. There he is.
Holy. Sorry, my kids are watching because it's early. Holy moly. What a bad look at all of this is right now. Yes, thank you. That lady might be one of my favorite listeners, so I appreciate it. It's rare that she says something nice about me too.
Is she right there? You're sitting at your desk.
No, she's no longer under the desk. Sadly, we've got to handle this like normal. So
she's probably dusting that beautiful bear head back there.
The one that she's extremely jealous of. Yes, that would be the one for sure.
I love you, Steph.
Yes.
Oh, cars. We were just talking before we went live, and I'm like, man, we got 14 games left. And usually you're like, oh, man, there's only 6 weeks left in the season. This is bad. You know, Bears aren't going to make the playoffs, but there's only 6 games left. We have 14 left, and this is just next level inept franchise, man, and it's just so bad.
I mean,
Or
there's
even-
legit fear the way we're playing that we have an 0-17 season possibility, right? Like that's the way that this is going. I mean, and yeah, Ryan is 100% correct. I have not wore anything Bears related since that game, which is very unusual because my wife will attest like 90% of my clothes is Bears related.
Oh, I'm the same way, man.
And I haven't worn I've actually combed my hair every day this week instead of wearing a hat.
Ryan Cox he's been combing his hair this week too. That's how crazy it's been,
That's
man.
so nuts. But it's, you looked at that game and you're like, the hope had been that they would just compete. I never expected them to win. I just wanted them to compete. And to say that they just crapped down their legs was done. It's an understatement. And Ron, I hate to break it to you. I was born before 1985, and I know Shane was as well. So we're not quite there yet. But it is depressing. We said at soccer practice today talking about, hey, Caleb Williams looks great, and I'm not ready to do it. But God, you have to start.
But Cars, if you're in that range, if you're there, if you finish with the first pick in the draft, if you end the season and you're drafted number 1 overall, it's already done.
Well, and
that's the pick.
I think it's ironic that we're going in to play Denver, whose head coach last year on national television said, when he was a pundit and not a coach, if you think tanking is bad now, wait until you see it next year for Caleb Williams.
We talked about it last night.
It's the irony of two teams that are having completely lost seasons right now. Doing this is just disgusting and depressing. So,
but this is, and Jared, I'm not calling you out here, but this is the give me some names. This is I had a guy, and you can't. It's just there's no track record to success there when you're trying to make this team viable moving forward. You can't. They've been down that route. Who is the viable quarterback that's going to? I mean, that's just a bridge.
It's Kyler. The names are going to be Kyler Murray and most likely Deshaun Watson if he continues at his rate of play. And guess what? Neither of those two are worth it. Are you going to go out and spend $30 million to commit to Kirk Cousins, fully guaranteed for a year? No, you're not. You're not going to do it. The veteran route is a mistake. It's what we have done the majority
all the time
of our lives, and it doesn't. They work great as bridge for every Alex Smith that is there to carry over. Alex Smith struggled in the playoffs, and they didn't win until they moved past him. So no, you can't. The veteran mark is.
If you're not gonna, if you finish within the top 2, let's just say, or number 1 overall, the story is written where you're going in the draft. And if for whatever reason they went in a different direction, it's just, I mean, it's typical Chicago Bears. That would be,
if you don't,
that would be a massive mistake.
The Bears move of old would be to do Olu Fashanu at number 1 and Marvin Harrison at number 2, right? That would be the traditional move. Or, if Matt Eberflus stayed here, Jared Verse and Olu, right? Like that would be the move. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a shot. And
this is what we're saying, Cornelius. If you go the veteran route, to me, that points to the fact that it's probably the same coaching staff. Yeah. There is no way in hell that you can turn Caleb Williams over to this coaching staff. And I'm not gonna talk negative about Lawrence Holmes, but I 100% agree with him. His philosophy, he's like, you put this staff in a courtroom where they have to take the stand and fight and tell you why they deserve to stay. Where is their evidence? What are they pointing to? Cars, there's nothing there. There's nothing for them to put up on the board and say, there's this, here's exhibit A, here's exhibit B.
Tell me one
There's
thing they do
nothing
well.
there.
One thing right
Why?
now. And I think, yeah. But I think that the biggest issue, and the issue that to me is the biggest kind of mark against this coaching staff, is when the Bears started to go on a bit of a roll last year on offense. When it got worse, and what defenses did is what defenses are doing right now, which is a lot of this more spy, these kind of spot coverages where they're dropping guys into zones. They're going to spaces, and everybody's keeping an eye on Justin. That is the same thing that happened at the end of last season has carried over into this season. And so my thing is, one, if Justin was truly the problem, then you draft CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and you say it. If you couldn't figure out a change to make that and to attack this, then that's what you do. But this staff is the one that signed off on Justin. This staff is the one that said, nope, we can make it work. We have enough. If we give him some things, we'll figure this out. And the problem is, we have not changed play calls. You had 5 or 6 games last year, an entire off season, and now 3 games into this season to sit down and figure a way to attack it. And we are playing worse than we were last year.
You've regressed from your low points last year.
You are way worse right now than at any point you were last season, outside of the San Francisco game because of weather considerations, right? But you don't even run the ball well anymore. The play design is terrible. Sorry, I'm so flustered right now because I spent part of today watching all 22 film, and the stuff that shows up, and we talked a lot about Justin last week and some of the things, and it's jumped the shark in the sense that Justin is taking way too much of the blame. And as Bears fans, we have to get past this point of being like, it is all the coach or it's all the player.
No, it can be both.
It's both. Right. And there are times that Justin is missing, but when we start showing you the numbers, this is the screw Luke Getsy show. Because if you look at some of these numbers and what he's doing and what's not happening and how bad it truly is, part of the reason I think that there's no hustle or effort, just like Jason here is saying, is because the players don't believe in the game plan. The players believe. Cars,
what did I say to you right before the show started?
It's
when I saw Justin in the presser yesterday, I'm like, man, the kid's tapped out. And then I started to think about the situation, and it's not that. He's tapped out on this staff because he knows how inept they are. He knows what the game plan is for Denver already, and he knows that nothing is going to change. And he's in year 3, in a massive year for him personally, and it's worse than it was in year 2. That's why he's distraught.
And you're going against the Denver team.
He's got his own warts, and we're not saying that he does not. He's got a lot to work on. But, Cars, and I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Zach Pearson and Phil last night. And I, believe it or not, changed Phil's mind live on air last night.
I refuse to believe it.
If you're sitting here and you push all your money to the center of the table, who the bigger issue is, Flus and Getsy or Justin Fields, to me, it's not close where the bigger issue lies, and it's with the head coach and the offensive coordinator. And the thing about it is there's people that are saying you got to bench Justin, bring in Beja. If you do that right now, if you go out and you bench Justin Fields right now in week 4, that is a cosign of making Justin the scapegoat, and you're co-signing the head coach and Luke Getsy as the people that are going to get you out of this mess. And it's a mistake.
It's so to that point right now, if you could, and let's before I finish answering that question, let's be real, and everyone should probably be aware. There's going to be no coaching staff changes after this game. Nothing is going to happen until after Washington. There's too quick of a turnaround. No team will do that. So we've got to deal with this for 2 weeks. And Justin should be frustrated because we're going against the 4th worst pass defense in the NFL this week, which is also a terrible run defense. And if he's not confident already, it is telling you. But it's 100%. You put it on the coaching staff and what's happening. You know, it is what Luke Getsy is doing on offense is inexcusable.
It is.
Are there plays that Justin should have made or can make? Yes. That doesn't completely admonish him. But when you look at what Luke is doing, and more importantly, what he's not doing, it makes no sense. If anyone has ever seen the comedian Pete Holmes, he does this joke about space and time and infinite, and he just keeps screaming, that makes no fucking sense. Go sit down and watch the All 22 and just watch play to play. What I want you to do, and I've took some screenshots that we'll talk about this week as well, but watch the wide receivers. Take the zoomed out view and look at the routes. I want you to watch 2 different things. One, watch how many people are in routes versus blocking. And second, I want you to watch where the routes are going. With all of this spacing and zone and with all of this speed that the Bears have, the fact that you are not doing things to manipulate the defense and take advantages of the spaces that are created is a massive, massive indictment of Luke Getsy.
It is. In Cars, this is, I just want to give the proper credit. This is from Kirsten Tanis on Twitter, and it's at KCT2020. She sent out a tweet. It says, which person has more appropriate expression after going 0-13 in the last 13 games? And these are the pictures. One of Luke Getsy from today and one from Justin Fields yesterday. And they both are connected to a 13-game losing streak. And you look at the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that right there doesn't fire you up when Phil says a shoe salesman, that's what he's talking about. Everything's great. We're a close-knit locker room. We're tight in there. And I said this, Cars. I go back to Tressman. I go back to Emery. Remember synergy and all of that nonsense.
Now it's
when you start talking about that and I told the guys you gotta push away the outside noise. When you're talking about that, it's already infiltrated your locker room and it's already made an impact. It's over. This coaching staff is done. They are dead men walking. Zach Pearson was on Keeping It 100 with us last night, Cars, and he said that there's one shot for this staff to stay, and you know what it is? To win 12 out of their last 14 games. And he's right. He's right. Other than that, what is there?
It is done.
It's over.
And we'll always go back to the point of really this last week or the week prior with Alan Williams. And if we ever get the story of what happened there, because this team, since that moment, they showed up in week 1. It wasn't pretty, but they showed up. The subsequent weeks, they for sure have not. There's been no belief. Flus is in way over his head now. He can't be a head coach. He's only focused on the defense. That's super bad. The offense isn't any better, but because he's the defensive coordinator right now, he can't do any of it. That moment is when this team got lost. And whatever it is got to be terrible. And not from a sense of how off guard everybody was, because they have polls in his interview, the fact that they wouldn't air it live, that it was recorded, the way that they have answered all of these things, it is awful. It is inexcusable, and it shows either, polls is over his head. It takes one thing to draft a roster and draft talent. It's another thing to get players into the right position. I don't think the draft picks have been that bad, but the coaching positions and how to use this talent. This, to me, if I look this back, and I'm totally rambling because I'm so angry, so I apologize, but on offense, to me, from one, starting wide receivers all the way through in the NFC North, we have the most talented skill positions overall. Now, I would say like Minnesota has better with Justin Jefferson and Hawkinson, but the whole picture of those groups, like we go 1, 2, 3 at wide receiver. Romeo Doubs would be wide receiver 4 for us, right? Like Amon Ronsop St. Brown would be a receiver for us. The other guys would be below him, below our other starters. So from both the running back group, the wide receiver group, the tight end group, we are the most talented skill position team in the NFC North, and we have the worst offense. That's where you're at. And I'm not saying that this is a world beating. I'm not saying that Cole Kmet is as good as Sam Laporta is playing right now, or as good as Travis Kelce. But I'm saying if you go from Kmet to Tanyan to Lewis, that team is significantly better than anybody else. And we don't use them. This whole thing on Getsy. You also got to remember, Hackett was the other guy that got a head coaching gig last year. He sucked as an offensive coordinator. Look at how much better Denver is doing this year with a different guy, basically the same talent. Hackett is now at New York. How do they look? Like crap.
Yep.
Some of these guys can do it. Some of them can't. Getsy is great on a script. He's terrible afterwards. Yes, Justin has his issues, but when you look at how he's, quote unquote, using talent, Foreman has been inactive 2 weeks in a row.
And there's
Get out of here.
And there's
Get
no
out of here.
reason for it.
Yeah.
And I know everybody, Cars, we talked about this, and you guys know my stance on it. And I know there's a bunch of people out there that love Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert is not a lead back in the NFL. He's a spot player that can come in as a change of pace guy. That's who he is. And it just makes no sense, Cars, because they go out there and they praise Roshan Johnson from Jump Street. It's like they're trying to force feed everything. And then we hear, Roshan's shown flashes. We're heading down to Tampa. We're going to get him rolling, and he gets 4 touches. He busts out, what was it, a 29-yard run? And that was his last attempt that game. But this is what we're used to. This is what they do. They game plan through the media because they think they're smarter than everybody. We're going to talk about, we're going to get off the bus running the football. And then they come out and they throw 48 times. That's who Chicago is. That's who they've always been for most of our lifetimes. They are not a well-run organization. They make a shit ton of money. And I know that's the bottom line for them. End of the day. That's why things hadn't changed forever. And that's why I was bringing up Kevin Warren. Because if they stay status quo, Cars, it's over. Nothing's changed. All that's going to change is the stadium. And they're going to cram that down your throat and say, Bears fans are so dumb. We gave them a shiny new toy. Come see the 3-win Bears in Arlington Heights.
Which is also known as the Jerry Reinsdorf move, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's insane. And it's, when you look at this, and there's a lot of questions like, Foreman should not be your number 2 or 3. He's not your number 3 back. you can't trust Khalil Herbert to stop anybody on a rush. You can't, part of the reason that Cole Kmet's numbers look as down as they are, even though he's second on the team or first on the team in receptions, something insane like that, is because they're leaving him in to block the vast majority of the time and then having him release. You have this talent and you're using none of it. And we're going to start to get into some of these numbers, but like, it's when you look at certain things, and use cases and just overall, like, what are you doing? Let's start off with just Luke Getsy by the numbers and understand here, like, sorry, it's a little small. On the left is kind of our first drives when the game is starting, when we're on the script. And what you notice before Kansas City is that first drive or the first couple of drives looks great. When you get into a tight game, that is when it fails. And look at that again, especially against Tampa. From start, 6 for 75. They had spacing on the routes. The big play to DJ Moore, there were 3 routes or 2 routes against 7 guys. And because of the spacing and the way they did it, he was open. He was in a space. We haven't gone back to that. And then you look at that last drive when the game is already over, when the game is done and it is just comfortable defenses and they're not playing the same, we go right back to 8 for 90 and a touchdown. And you look at Kansas City, game is over. All of a sudden, we go from can't average 3 yards a play that we're averaging 5 yards. Well, how much of that is Justin Fields scrambles? How much of that is anything other than a broken play and he makes something happen? And when you look at the right, where is the spacing? Where are the slants? Where are the play actions? None of those things. We are currently, and I'll show you the number later, we are 18% 18% play action. For a team that was so good against the run last year, why? Why are we, where is that? The fact that you don't really have design plays to get Mooney, Claypool, and Moore involved, the fact that Mooney and Claypool combined for 8 catches and Roschon Johnson has 10, the issue is not just the quarterback. The issue starts there. We made a big deal of this tight end room. Tanyan has played 30 snaps in 3 games. We have Mercedes Lewis 22, Blasingame 17. Last week it was 9 snaps for Mercedes Lewis and 8 for Robert Tanyan. What are you doing? What is this?
Yeah, and Cars, and then I'm not trying to hold Phil accountable to this, but we all expected Tanyan to come in and actually help improve Cole Kmet, because he can do things that Cole isn't successful at, and it's just not there. I believe Phil, going into the season, said that Tanyan would have more receptions and more yards than Cole Kmet. And again, this isn't me trying to bag on Phil for that, but that's just us saying that it's very, very clearly defined of how this should go. It's not that hard. And I would love to sit down with Luke Getsy in a room and just hear the truth of what their thought process is. Because they're not telling the truth up in these pressers at all. That's why you see this as a guy that has led an 0-13 football team on offense, that added DJ Moore to it, that extended Cole Kmet, that drafted Darnell Wright, that has Justin Fields for the second year, that traded for Chase Claypool, that has a healthy Darnell Mooney. Come on, man. It's just, I go back to that tweet from that guy, that they're trying to make Justin something that he's not, because
it's worse than that.
It is worse.
this is where it gets to the point of just massive issue. You're not even trying to disguise anything that you're fucking doing. You're sitting there, you have run 95+% plays out of the 11. Guess what, guys? If folks think that our offensive line is such trash and so terrible, that number would not be where it is. And when you look at this and you're looking at how predictable you are, you go heavy, guess what you're going to do? You're going to run. So there's absolutely no ingenuity. There's no idea of what you're doing. I said that we should be a heavier 12 base because of Tanyan, because of that flexibility, because of him and Komet in the play action game. When you have those things happening and you've got speed on the outside, this changes the whole game. It changes everything. And he's refusing to even look at it. Look at what Minnesota's doing. Kevin O'Connell comes from McVay. They weren't a big I formation play action team. Nope. That's never been what they did. Guess what he's doing here in Minnesota? He's doing play action because it's what Kirk Cousins is good at. And they've done, I think it's something like 48 or 50% of the pass plays have been out of play action. We're not even looking at this. We're running RPO and sitting in shotgun, and we're not using our tight ends. We are not using our fullback. Blasingame is a bigger miss to me as well, that we're not doing this. And so when stuff isn't working, they're just going back and going, well, we'll try it again. We'll just swap this guy out. And when you look at the numbers, Darnell Mooney is out in the field for 60% of the snaps. 60%. So if you're looking at this and we are in 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, 90+% of the time, and that means that 2 out of 3 Darnell Mooney is on the field for and is missing the others, that's a miss. Why is Velus Jones getting end around snaps in game 2 more than trying to find a way to get something into your best playmakers? I don't understand it. And for everyone that wants to keep saying, Justin, it's Justin, it's Justin, you are wanting it to be Justin right now. Justin is part of the problem, and it is exacerbated way worse by the coaching staff that can't use players.
Right. Yeah. And G Payne has this up here, and I don't know if he didn't watch Keep It 100 last night, but I addressed this. I initially going into the presser yesterday, I saw Justin. I'm like, man, this dude's tapped out. And then I started thinking about it a little bit, and he's not tapped out on the game of football. He's tapped out on this coaching staff because he sees how inept they are. Like I said to Cars, he's already seen the game plan and how they plan to attack Denver. And he knows nothing is going to change. He's in year 3, the biggest year in his career, where he could have catapulted himself.
Look what Jalen Hurts. He could have been
exactly into another
billion.
stratosphere financially. Become, top end, top flight quarterback, and he knows now. It's solidified. He can't get there with this staff. Justin has his warts, like we've said, and people don't want to hear that. This can be a Justin Fields issue and a coaching issue. It can be both. It's not, if this staff is gone, everything is 100% better and Justin is hitting the open receivers. It's not like that. There's issues there. The biggest issue is the coaching staff. That's what people need to, you need to be able to digest that. I mean, I had a dude calling me racist in the YouTube comments saying that I want Justin Fields to fail. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Did you watch the night he was drafted? My God, I literally said on air that night, the Bears have shifted the Titanic away from the iceberg with the drafting of Justin Fields. It's like, wow, they understand it.
They finally get it.
And then the first game that he started in, Matt Nagy's game plan was to get the kid obliterated.
Oh, did you listen to Josh Lucas?
Josh Lucas, exactly.
Where he...
Well, what do you do as a GM or a director of player personnel when you see that? I don't know how you don't lose your mind and go crazy.
And as people that had completely tied their hope to, like, they were tied at the hip. They both needed to be successful. And I always use the analogy for relationships, like you're both rowing a boat. If you're rowing the boat and the other person is taking a fucking bowling ball and throwing it through the floor to take on water just to see if you can create a new Santa's sleigh play, you're set up for failure. And it's I keep going back to, like, if you really are feeling like your life is too positive right now and that you've got too many good things going on, go watch the All 22. Just at the Bears offense, not the behind the quarterback play. They have really good views on sideline plays. Just go through and watch route combinations, watch bunching, watch where people are blocking. Like, I'll throw this one up because it's super small. But just so you know, there are 4 Kansas City Chiefs running. We have 3 players in a route, and we've got a tight end and a running back blocking a defensive end one-on-one. You now have a situation where you have 3 guys versus, what is this, 6 defenders? 7 defenders. 3 routes versus 7. And you've got 2 of these routes basically for a long portion here in the middle. Notice that that's a Velus Jones snap, I believe, at the top as well. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? For everyone that wants to sit down and say, okay, Justin is the problem, where is he supposed to go? Where is this ball supposed to go? Where is the space? You can argue maybe at the bottom of the screen, just shy of the 35-yard line, that's the place where that should go. But that's good coverage. That linebacker's in a play to actually jump that and make an interception. Do you maybe hope that you can loft it here and get it over if that's DJ Moore dropping back towards the sidelines? This is where he goes with the ball, and you see DJ has basically kind of gave up on this route. He was not running because he saw he was well covered and it wasn't going to be the place. So now you've got, do I throw this into triple covered Velus Jones or in here kind of to the flat with this? Where's the ball supposed to go? Where? Where?
It's not NFL football, Cars.
This wouldn't.
It's
I made the joke today again at second practice. Like, this wouldn't work in the SEC. No, screw that. This would not work in the Big Ten, right? This sort of thing wouldn't work in the Pac. Well, it's the Pac-2 now. It wouldn't work there. These schemes are so bad that they make no sense. When you look at, like, the first pass play that we sit down and go run, you've got 3 routes on 7 defenders. And look, 2 of them are in the middle of the field in the same place, going the same direction. What is that? This is when you sit down and tell me, oh, this is Justin, the ball's supposed to go. Where? There are 2 guys minimum near every position, and it ends up going up top there to Chase, who comes back and fights for the ball. And it was a great ability for him to do that.
Yeah, and exactly. This is the first down.
But this
as inept of a design as this is, you still move the chains on this
because your quarterback extended the play and was able to make something happen. When you have this, and it doesn't really show, but you've got this is your tight end and your running back right here, top of the screen near the 25. And you've got 3 other guys that are all in the same spot. Where's that ball supposed to go? If he goes to if he tries to look to this guy in the middle, there are 2 defenders there. If he tries to go to the guy deep, there's a safety waiting to come over the top. There's a cornerback who is step for step with the wide receiver right here. And if you're trying to go to the bottom, that's a pick 6. No questions asked. So
Cars,
where are you going?
Let me ask you this. And I talked to Zach Pearson last night with Phil about this. Who's going to be the scapegoat? This
Justin.
isn't getting.
He is right now.
You think that he's going to be. So if we get to after the Commanders game, and obviously nothing has changed, you think that that's their move? You don't think it's going to be Getsy falls on the sword, or
I don't know that Ryan Poles would force that decision in 22 games. And I completely agree.
Then he's part of the issue.
And he, this is for a guy who I think is drafted well and added players well. He's done the player acquisition part right. This is exactly our problem with Ryan Pace, that when stuff went bad, they wilted and hid. Now, it was a step that he did give a press conference, but the fact that that was not live streamed, that was not anywhere able to be live comments, that's a coward move.
It is.
And it's, yeah.
And there, listen, I'm not going to go down this dark tunnel, Cars, but you and I have talked, and there could be legitimate reasons for that, let's just say. But my God, even under the worst possible circumstances, this is you're a young executive. You create a shitstorm like this with no possible way to dig your way out of it. You're not going to be an executive again in that position.
You're done
at the top of the food chain.
And if you're Ian Cunningham, you have damaged your reputation a bit by tying into that.
He turned down a GM role last year.
Arizona, right?
In Arizona, which I understand. But look at Arizona. And I've been more critical of Arizona than anybody. They're better coached than Chicago is.
If you're telling me that Daubs, Rondell Moore, James Conner, the corpse of Zach Ertz, who's no longer the same, and I can't name, was it Marquise Brown and others, that team would go out and beat Dallas and drop a ton of yardage all over the place, I never would have believed that. The fact that we as a team cannot score when the game matters is asinine for the amount of talent that we have. It is, the offensive line is not the problem that it was last year. The problem is, to me, like, percentages are always made up on the spot, but it's like 70-30 Getsy Fields. It's 80-20 Getsy Fields. It's somewhere in that range where Getsy takes the vast majority, because I don't care. I keep seeing this stuff of like, Field sucks, we're going to bring in Bagent. It's going to be the same play calls, guys.
That's what I said last night.
It's the same people.
You're gonna have a few more completions of where Bagent may not be hesitant to rip the ball when there's a guy open, which Justin has struggled with. We've seen it on tape. There's going to be a couple more of those plays, but when you are off the script, when you're beyond the first 15, it's still Luke Getsy. Those images that Carter's put up there for you, is that going to change? Are those routes going to change with Bagent in there? No.
And it's the same. We showed a lot of those same 3-on-7, 2-on-7s, 3-on-6s last week, and it didn't change. The first play against Tampa was a 2-on-6, and that was a big play to DJ Moore. Guess what? Getsy had him move into a place to sit in a zone, to find a spot and settle. That worked. What have we not done since? None of these guys are getting into a spot. You know, Kurt Warner has called him out. The QB school has called it out. Tim Jenkins has called it out. Everybody is talking about this whole play call and how terrible it is. It is inexcusable. You're not getting players into space. You're taking Cole Kmet out of every pass route to basically sit and block first. That's not the problem. The problem is if you keep blocking 4 with 6, you're in trouble. If you keep blocking 4 with 7, you're in trouble. I don't know how this changes.
Where was that? Right here, James. Let me ask you this and put your answer to this in the chat. Tell me your thought in the chat on Darnell Wright's play so far this season. I'm going to be interested to see what you say.
But even on top of that, James, you've been the one saying Bagent. If the O-line's not good, he's not as mobile as Fields. What are you hoping? Like, what is that? The offensive line
and
isn't
Ivan's
great.
got a point too.
Yes.
Ivan's got a point too.
The offensive line isn't perfect. It isn't great. But if you look again at what's happening, we are Justin still remains 6th or 8th in the longest time to pressure in the NFL from all quarterbacks. That means that only at worst 7 other quarterbacks have more time till someone is in their face. Part of the reason that people are getting into Justin's face is because we keep running this sort of stuff where there is nobody open. So you can sit down and say the offensive line is trash, and there are plays and there are moments where, yes, things happen. But Darnell Wright has been your best offensive lineman to date. Jatiri Carter has been your second best offensive lineman to date. Larry Borum last week was your 3rd best offensive lineman, and your left guard and your center are by far your worst, and alternate basically being between which one.
And it goes back to what we talked about. It's why at this point when you're a rebuilding team, and again, I'm going to bring up the name that Cars doesn't want to hear, but you're not losing anything by rolling the dice with a young guy.
No. At this point, you should be. I mean, you see it in the defensive tackle numbers, right? Like, Dexter's playing 40% of the snaps. Pickens is at 25%. Yeah. That's pretty good numbers. That's what you should be doing. You should keep rolling the dice with these young kids. There's no reason that when Tevin Jenkins comes back, that Cody Whitehair.
Yeah. And Tony, I appreciate your loyalty because I know you participate in a lot of chats, but to say that Darnell Wright has been pedestrian is simply not true. And I'm sure you're fired up about him getting beat by one of the best defensive linemen in all of football last week. And I get that. I think a lot of fans look at big plays like that and they're like, oh, that kid is pedestrian or he's not good. Darnell Wright has had some lumps, yes. But Darnell Wright, I am extremely pleased with where he is right now. 3 weeks in this structure, in how this offense is.
I mean, if you looked at the way that Andrew Thomas started at New York and now the player that he is, if you look at the way that Tristan Wirfs was pretty good to start, but when you look at a lot of these kids, he is doing extremely well for the position. Yeah. He is a very middle of the pack right now. But I think, Sean, you've got an excellent point right here. Like, that's when you sit down and say, I think Poles has built a very talented team. It is way more talented than what is showing.
But you know where the problem is in that statement, right?
And now you've got to have the balls to do the right thing. And I don't know another way to say it. You need to have
because
the
you
conviction.
hired the fucking coach that hired the rest of this staff. And here's the biggest problem, Cars. And we will never know the truth on this. And you and I both know how this works, and 95% of the chat knows. Eberflus and Ryan Poles share an agent. You can't.
And I think too many people are going back to the Ryan Pace excuse and are trying to say that Flus was forced on him. If that was the case, then Ryan Poles shouldn't have taken the gig. And he flat out said, I was given full authority to make that decision. So
Right.
let's not try to go back
from the ownership, but how did his agent play a factor in this?
I mean, even to the point of
And
what other candidates were there that you would, like, there weren't a lot of the big names coming through.
Right, but I mean, and I know, and this is looking back, but they, who was it that they were? Maybe it was Adam Hogue that brought it up. But how does? Trying to think of the way that I want to phrase this. How does Mike McDaniel not get a sniff?
I mean,
how did he not get an interview?
To be honest, it's probably because of his past history and the way the weird Bears are. He had his drinking problems, and they would use that instantly as an excuse to character.
But do you know what I'm saying?
Out. I mean, but that's the good teams look past, to your point, all of that. That's what the Bears have always done. The Bears have always looked for reasons to kind of ignore the hot name candidates or the big name candidates because of the dollar value that sits down and would get it tied to them so that they can focus on the other. Like when you look at what Flus has done and the way that sort of relationship kicked in, it's just not a problem.
No, you don't.
No, that's what you do as a general manager.
That's exactly what you do. You have scouts that are out there. Yes. If you are not on the road doing those things, you're not doing your job as a general manager.
You need to have simple. Yeah, general manager needs to have their own views on these players. So he's going where the scouts are telling him, there's a guy here or 2 or 3 guys at this game that you should come watch because I'm high on them. This is how you spot check. You absolutely travel and scout players constantly. That's the job. You need to know when it comes down to that moment of, am I going to choose player A or player B? If you can go back to watching every play that they've called or every game that they've been at, that you saw them live, you saw them in person, and you can compare those experiences. When he talked about Darnell Wright, and he said, what stood out to you is when you watched him play, hearing him and seeing the pad collisions and what that means. That's why you've got to do it.
I hear you. I mean, Cars, where do you stand? Phil and I have been loud and out front with it.
Hold on. Before we do that, I want to, there's a comment I want to.
Go ahead. Throw it up there.
Yeah, this could not be more inaccurate overall. About JF1, that he has not been short with fans and media from day one. The pouty and worse body language is just not a thing.
No.
This guy has sat down and took bullets and talked about what happened on interceptions and what happened on plays. Players come to him and surround him. Cutler, for the most part, stood off alone. So when this sort of weird stance right now makes no Kentucky Bears fans, doesn't make sense to me because it's never been the case. When things have been good, he's been there. When things have been bad, he's been there. He's always been the same guy.
I think it's an overreaction to his
presser today.
Yesterday.
That would make sense.
And initially, I went into that thinking the same thing, Kentucky Bears fan. And thank you so much for your generosity. We totally appreciate that. I overreacted initially going in. I'm like, man, this kid, I was worried about him tapping out and being out, but it's to me, it points to the staff, and he sees how inept they are. And I know I'm repeating myself, but that is hard to overcome when you listen. It's not just in the NFL. If you guys, you're every day, if you go to work and your superior is really, really bad at what they do,
And we've all been there.
and we've all been there, right? It affects you. It affects you emotionally, and it gets to a point where it will affect you physically, where you're bringing it home with you. Like I said, you have a lot on the line as a third-year QB in one of the biggest media markets in the world. Everybody's went out there and said that this is the no excuse tour for Justin Fields. I bought into that, and Josh Lucas kind of opened up my eyes to the gray area where they're not. And it doesn't mean that since they bypassed quarterback, it just means that they didn't believe in Bryce Young and CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson more. They didn't believe in them more than they believed in where Justin Fields could potentially go. And does that mean that he's their guy moving forward? There's a lot of gray area in there, like Josh Lucas talked about. Cars, you can speak on it. You listened to the score interview. I listened to him. He was on with Hogan Johns, and then he was on, I forget who else he was on with another set, but was there anything pertaining to the gray area, he not being this front office's guy 100%? Because he said that they've made improvements for him. He doesn't feel like they've went completely out of their way and bent over backwards to do absolutely everything to make sure that he has everything.
Yeah, he flat out said, like, the beauty of this and the reason you do this is because you can say, we didn't fully commit to him, and we figured out that he's not our guy because you didn't draft him, and all that pressure is absolutely off. Lucas completely admitted that, and so it gives them a complete pass right now. It's just weird, to listen to that frank matter. They've done a lot. If you look at offensive line play along the league, it is not good. And everybody likes to focus on, there was this one play where Tyree Carter got bowled over in a second and he was on top of Fields. And there's this play with Darnell Wright. You're ignoring everything else and everything else that's going on because they're consistently winning way more than they're losing. The problem is just when there is time, and one of the easiest ways to sit down and talk about how well an offensive line is blocking is how long a quarterback is taking, not just to throw, but the difference between throw and pressure. If only 7 other teams are getting pressure, and it takes longer to get pressure on the quarterback than the Bears, that tells you there's stuff that is working with your offensive line. And because you're not running the ball, because you've seemingly completely abandoned the run overall, you don't make play action an option. You do none of those things. What are we going to do? Like, you just keep looking at this over and over, and it is such shit everywhere. And when you see these things of like, right now he doesn't look mentally tough enough to be handling the Bears. Dude, he stood up after the Cleveland game last year, no problem. He's been there. The man's been beat up to shit with poor play calling, keeps taking the blame on everything. And then at the end, say he wasn't ready or he wasn't mentally tough enough. No, it takes 2 to be in this scenario. You need a coach that can do these things. It has nothing to do with anything more than just, if you're going to go into a meeting and your boss is going to shit on you for doing something, are you going to be excited to go to that meeting or not? You're not. If you know going into this that the game plan sucks, that nothing changes, it's there. This does not, and I keep seeing, and people have clearly kept ignoring, we're not saying Justin is innocent. Stop with this. It's black and white. It's not that case. Justin has the blame as well. But clearly in play design, in play call, in the way that we are attacking defenses, the way that we are not using the personnel that we have, the way that we are not going heavy, we are not using play action, we are not running the ball, we are not. You hear a lot of knots.
What does
Tell
it
me
say when
one
the
good
Tampa
thing.
Bay defender says to DJ Moore himself, "Hey, dog, they ain't using you the right way."
And we
They're
called the same.
reviewing the tape. He's
Yeah.
literally watching the offense and what they're doing and knows more about it than you and I or anybody else in the chat room. Hey, dog, they ain't using you the right way. And DJ's like, it's all right. They know, guys. These guys, when you're breaking down the tape, Phil DDP broke it down today and shows you that the coaching staff is the biggest issue. That doesn't absolve Justin from the warts that he has. It's less of an issue overall, but it's still an issue. He has to be better also. This coaching staff isn't getting better. It's not.
No.
I've said it 10 times tonight already. This coaching staff is done. And if Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles come to a consensus that they're bringing the band back again for 2024, then buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, because then nothing is different. Nothing.
And that's the legit
You'll
fear.
draft Caleb Williams #1 cars, and what are we going to be doing? Well, you have a talented quarterback, and look at the play design.
It's
It's
just
the same thing.
It's incredible. Like, if we go back to just kind of sitting down and talking about some of these things, you know, it's shown up a few times in the past.
Oh, it's so, I mean, we all know it, cars, but when you put it in front of your face in text, it makes it even worse. How ridiculous this is. My son is 12 years old, and he would know better. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but this is where we're at.
It's
There's
100%.
no rhyme or reason to any of this.
This is why Tanyan is supposed to be here. This is why you have the personnel changes that you can do. Like, you're designing, and I'll come back to this because this is another comment that I keep saying is ridiculous. You're designing running plays for your quarterback because you can't design shit else in this offense.
Exactly.
And so you're relying on Justin to make a play to get things moving. Justin, if this is a guy that is going to sit down and you're going to see continual plays where we have bunches of guys in the same place facing a defense we've faced for half a fucking season already, for a defense that you've had an entire offseason to prepare against, and you can't sit somebody in a zone, figure out how to move players around, how to use the speed, use the talent. If you can't figure any of this stuff out, and you're going to sit down and be like, well, but Justin Fields is missing guys, who is he supposed to throw to? Huh? Who is this supposed to go to? Who is this supposed to go to? It's one thing to sit down and say we're making excuses for Justin Fields when we continually say, no, he's shown his warts. But you cannot sit down and tell me that any of these play calls and any of this type of shit that's going on is on Justin Fields. You've got an offensive coordinator, a QB coach, a wide receiver coach, and an offensive line coach who all have had experience calling plays at different levels, whether it's being part of a run game coordinator like it was for Morgan, or it was a pass game coordinator by Tyke Tolbert. Where? Where does it show up? Yeah, or Vittorio, we're going to be done with you. That's... he's reading through progressions. Yeah. There's nobody open. You just want to see what you want to see. That's where we're at.
And there is reps out there when people are open, but like I said, overall, what was the guy's name? Vittorio. I think your mind is made up. And how are you telling me how we're making excuses for Justin Fields when we've said 6 times tonight that he's part of the problem? We've said that live on air. There's a rewind button if you're on YouTube. Rewind it and listen to us literally say those words, that it's coaching and Justin has warts.
Yeah.
If I get up here and talk about Matt Eberflus and his flaws, that doesn't mean that everything is sunshine and rainbows for Justin Fields. If I talk about Justin's warts, it doesn't mean that Matt Eberflus is an awesome coach. In Vittorio's world, you bench Justin Fields and you're done with him. And that means that Vittorio is the biggest Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy fan that I've ever seen in our chat room. So bravo to you, sir.
Yes.
Great job.
Way to stick it to the man by standing up for those who have been.
Because that makes sense. Vittorio's sticking up for Luke Getsy and Matt Eberflus. Great job.
Again, right? You look at these guys, just because someone was arguing with me on Twitter and said, Eberflus wanted someone from that system. Well, guess what? Hackett and Getsy both came from the same system that McDaniels is running, or LaFleur is running brilliantly in Green Bay, except for today, which I'm glad to see. Why, with all that talent, was Denver's offense measurably worse than it is with Sean Payton right now? Same players, same basic everything. Why is it better? It is because of this. And when you see things like this, yes, sometimes it is. There are players open. But sometimes if someone is standing in a zone and waiting for you and you've got eyes on you everywhere, where are you supposed to go?
Bam.
Look, everyone's eyes are on Justin. You've got 2 spies on him at multiple points. Where's he going to go? This is, again, a lot. There are plays where he should have thrown it, but there are a lot more plays where there is nothing to do.
Yeah.
Again, go back and watch what the Rams did when O'Connell was an OC there. Watch the spread, the way they go 3 wide. There was no play action. Everything was straight up.
Exactly.
He comes to Minnesota and he realizes the scheme he would run there does not play better to Kirk Cousins. And so he changes the scheme to leverage his players. That's the difference.
Yeah, and Vittorio, this is the point. You're making our point for us. But good for you to assume what I'm saying based off of 2 sentences. You're assuming what we're saying, and we're live on air speaking to you where you can see us. And we've told you that Justin is part of the problem. Yet you didn't hear that at all.
Or you just wanted to focus on your other portion. And it's
so you have a narrative in your head that you want to build up and proceed with. And that's fine. But TTNL has never been the place where we're going to let that shit slide. And I don't want you to think that we're piling on you. And I'm happy that you're here and watching and hopefully learning from us and you'll be back. But we've told you that Justin is part of the problem. Justin has warts. Justin has plenty that he needs to work on. But he's not alone at all.
If you benched Justin Fields versus, I guess the question to ask yourself is, do you think we'd have a better record if we benched Justin Field and played Tyson Bagent and kept the coaching staff that we have? Or if we fired, let's just say, even just the offensive coordinator and kept Justin Field? Which do you think would have a higher impact on wins? And I hate to break it to you, as much as we hate, you may hate to hear it. That skill position, that offense loves Justin. They are his team. They sit down and would follow him. So if you think that right now benching Justin Fields is the right thing when even the players understand that the problem isn't him, that it's the play calling. I don't know what else
the
to
player
say.
in Tampa that said that to DJ Moore.
Wasn't it the linebacker?
White, was it White?
White, I think.
I can't remember. But anyways, let's just whatever. The defender from Tampa. He didn't come out and say, "Bro, you need a quarterback."
Yeah.
He's dog. They ain't using you the right way. That's an indictment on the offensive system that the Bears have designed for this personnel. And this is a defender that is watching this every single rep. And quite honestly, if guys like Cars and myself and Phil and JT O'Sullivan and Kurt Warner and pretty much anybody else that has access to all 22 sees it and is sick to their stomach about how inept it is, imagine what it's like when you're another NFL defender watching this and being like, dude.
It's got to be like Waterboy with the two Louisiana teams, and you're reading a Coaching for Dummies book to figure out what the next play call they're going to do. I mean, again, when you look at just some of just this weirdness, what are you doing here? You're not. There's no balance. When you get out of 11, you're running the ball 90% of the time, which makes you extremely predictable. You're not using play action. You're not doing anything outside of a script at all. What's going to be different anywhere?
Yeah. And actually, Coach Dre, he didn't. That was the tweet that was put out. If you go back and listen to it, he actually did not say that. He didn't say, "Tell me about it." He said, "It's all right." That's what, and I know things get misconstrued on Twitter and people want to build a narrative and make, I mean, you see it in almost every tweet out from these aggregate tweeters now where they're literally everything is aimed back at Chicago, and hey, the Bears have earned to be shit on. It's just what it is, but
it kills me to that, like, we're at that point. You know, it kills me that I sit down and have to say we are very well potentially over a 2-year period to go 3-31.
Last night, Cars, we said it's Mark Trestman with less wins.
It's worse than that.
Well, right.
Because
that's exactly what Pearson said.
This team is talented. I agree that the defensive line isn't as good. I disagree when folks say the offensive line isn't. But if you look from linebackers to secondary to everybody, this is a team that's not old. The biggest problem with the Trestman team was it was old.
Yep.
This is a young team with upside.
Yeah, and then listen, and that's the thing. And I know there's been people I don't know, do you have more stuff to put up their Cars, or have you covered?
I mean, you just look at it and you just kind of go, if you don't start to go heavy, if you don't start to go do more 2 tight ends, if you don't start to sit down and,
well, where's the downside in it? Are you going to lose by 30? You know what I mean?
Like,
play to your personnel. This is where it baffles me. How are you not playing to your personnel? You guys have heard me say they're force feeding a baby with a fucking shovel. And I mean, saying, why are you making such a mess?
It's a player that we like, but right now the baby that they're trying to force feed is Roschon Johnson.
Yeah.
Which makes absolutely no sense in a year that we are not going to do anything to waste a ton of carries and mileage on this kid. If you really like him, that's what Foreman's here for. But
yeah.
If he's going to be the focal part of your offense, this is not Pop Warner. This is not 3 yards and a cloud of dust and you go for it every 4th down.
But Cars, I mean, it just point back to bring up Tampa again. What other franchise has a rookie running back that has shown some flashes in limited time? But what team puts a kid in and he busts off a 29-yard run and you don't see him again?
And you go into obvious passing plays
That's what I
after
mean.
that.
Yes.
And he of the two players you've got, you're done. Like, he's the one. And it goes back to Herbert. They have some unrealistic expectations of Khalil Herbert to become a player that, if anything, he's shown me again why he is a rotational guy, because I love it when he comes in.
And we said that, Cars, and people get fired up about it because he led the league in yards per carry. That doesn't matter. Let him lead the league in yards per carry as a backup, as a change of pace guy. That's fine. That's who Khalil Herbert is. He's not a lead back. He's never been a lead back. They tried to force it down your throat that he improved his pass blocking, and go out and watch the very first play from the first game this year. The first play. And what does he do?
Watch the Kansas City play. It was terrible again.
That's who he is, and that's fine. He has a role on this team, and it's not the lead back, and it never should have been that way, ever. Deontay Foreman, under the circumstances, should have been that guy coming into this season. We told you that here at TTNL. He should have been the guy. Your relief guy, your change of pace guy is Herbert, and you're sprinkling in Roshan along the way. Somebody gets hurt, everybody moves up. Homer can get a couple of more reps. It's like it is. But the Bears are inept from the top to the bottom right now, and it's not going to change.
And it kills me because when they're going two running backs, which I appreciate when it's sometimes, when it is going to be Herbert and Foreman, but it's Herbert and Foreman, or Herbert and Johnson, back on the side of the quarterback. And depending on where pressure's coming, that's the side that stays in to block. You're not using your fullback at all. You didn't rarely use him last year. You should have used him this year again.
And you went out of your way to bring him back. You know what I mean? You technically extended him. He didn't hit the market. So you technically extended him and brought him back. And listen, Blazing Game can play.
Can catch.
Yes.
I don't care if you're not using him in the run game, but if you're not using him in the pass game, it's a massive miss. He's got speed. He's got good hands. He's got all of that. That's a big miss. If you're, like the keys to this game, if you don't see us start to use different personnel, if you don't see 18 out there for more than 10 plays, if you don't see, 84 out there for more than 10 plays, if you don't see Blazing Game out there for more than 10 plays, we have fucked up.
And that's the point, Cars, because leading up, when they signed Mercedes Lewis, we're like, we have our text thread and we're like, wow, that's, older dude, but we get it. They're gonna come in with this personnel that we all bought into. We told you guys all about, and we got it. We're like, wow, okay, totally. You bring in a veteran presence that has made an impact, especially blocking. Not in Chicago, not here. Oh, you brought in Tanyan, a guy that has the ability to get down the seam. Nope, not gonna play. We'll give you 10. We'll give you 10. Get out. No. Oh, Roshan, franchise pillar as a leader when you drafted him in the 4th round. And again, I'll bring this up. And I know I don't want to say that it's bullshit, but this is what they do. When you use the word franchise pillar in character.
Oh, yeah.
when you have the first pick in round 4, you don't trade down 14 spots to take a chance to lose that. And that's exactly what they did. You know what I mean, Cars? If you're using those words, you don't risk it. And it's word salad. It's bullshit. That is what this franchise is built on. Is bullshit on word salad.
And if we have a good linebacker and a good running back, all of the city will be okay.
Zach Pearson said last night to kick off training camp, they bought Matt Eberflus out to the middle of the field. They handed him a microphone. Bears fans were so excited. It's a big year for us. We've been working hard. It's been great off season. We're so excited. We got you guys here. The momentum is building. It's going to be great. Let's go. Let's get things kicked off. Let's get out of it. Let's get practice started. Let's go. We want to hear you guys screaming. All right. Sets the microphone down. And what's the very next thing that happens, Cars? Eberflus walks the fucking team 3 fields over where no fans are and nobody can see them. That is an institutional issue that has been in Chicago forever. And it's an embarrassment. They're worried about Greg Braggs in the stands recording something when it doesn't matter. That's their focus.
They only would have to worry about him if there was a Taco Bell in the way, but
New England live streams practices. Minnesota live streams practices. And you have people that work for the Bears pointing out Ron G and saying, this man's going to make you lose to the Packers. Saying that to a fan in the stands, a Chicago Bears official. That's what this franchise is. That's what they're worried about. And look how inept they are everywhere else. Kevin Warren's got a big job ahead of him. Zach said they've made some strides. He said they went from cold hot dogs to legitimate food in the media room at the games, which he's been very, very impressed with. I guess those are our baby steps. I don't know, maybe under those circumstances, wins will be incorporated by 2027 or so, 2028, when we open in Arlington. We'll see. The Cars, it's more of the same, man. It's more of the same with different names. That's it.
Even though I still say that Pohl said that he would sign Eberflus to be the coach, you really did do this in complete wrong order. You hired coach, then general manager, then team president. That is the order in which we did these things. Sweaty Teddy should not have been able to ride out on the coattails. You should have had someone in there last year starting this process before, and being part of this hiring. Like, this should have been things that were way done.
And you saw the report, whether it's true or not, about the Bears process of hiring when they brought in Polian, that Polian was running a search. At the same time, Ted Phillips was running his own search.
Yeah.
Welcome to Chicago.
It's like I keep saying, it is terribly inexcusable of just the way that this has been. I can't even remember. I mean, they interviewed some names. They
did not.
McDaniel. They did interview Dable, who, again, I'd like to point out is incredibly lost his offensive genius.
Right,
tag
and Cards,
this year.
he was always going.
Yeah, but that to New York was always a thing because the GM had already been handpicked and had known for ages too.
Yeah, Shane, and it was one of those wink, wink, nod, nod type deals, and it is what it is. And I was never a Dayball fan, and I'm still glad that Dayball's not here.
No, because I think it's really telling. Like, everybody laughed when they extended Daniel Jones, and they said, "Nope, Dable has figured out how to unlock him," and then it's not the same. So no, they don't. I don't even remember who they were interviewing at the point. Like there was no other name that really was like, "Oh, that's the guy you've got to go get." It was never. I'm trying to think who all was hired that year. So it was like McDaniel went to Miami, Hackett went to Denver. Detroit did Minnesota. O'Connell went to Minnesota that year.
And Sirianni was the year previous in Philly.
And Dan Quinn was a finalist for this one, and everybody thought he was the shoe-in to get the job. I mean, there wasn't even really much of a consideration, and all this time. Go ahead.
No, this is where you have to, when you look at this, Vince, and I'm glad you brought this up. So great point about Tanya and Lewis. Shane would love to know what they think of Getsy. Well, it's easy to know what they think of Getsy in Green Bay because they had a Hall of Fame generational quarterback.
Changes quite a bit.
All of the shit that Luke Getsy came up with, and this was never Luke Getsy's offense anyway, because of the head coach that's there. But things change when Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. So that's the way that you have to look at it. Everything can be great there.
Well,
there can be concerns, but Luke Getsy didn't make Aaron Rodgers, is what I'm saying.
Well, and you got to remember, right? Getsy was the quarterback coach. Hackett was the offensive coordinator, but none of them called plays. And so everybody has this belief of like, you got to be a play caller. Mike McDaniel did not call plays in San Francisco. So there's a belief, there's this weird belief, like someone said, like, I don't want coaches to, or, I'm tired of the Bears trying to hire new offensive coordinators. I want them to hire someone experienced. Well, newsflash is any good offensive coordinator is a head coach right now or about to be. You have to, you're not going to go get somebody like that. The only chance you have would be this offseason would be Ben Johnson out of Detroit, who's probably the hot candidate for the Bears.
Well, he'll be on the list 100%. And to me, in the cars, you can speak on this, and maybe I know Phil and I are in agreement. Zach Pearson last night, when I asked him, he wasn't, but things are to a point now where he is on the bandwagon for Jim Harbaugh to Chicago. And I think it's the time. I do, because I think Jim comes in to this situation with power. You're going to have to pay him. He's got a track record in the league. He's got a track record with working with quarterbacks in the NFL. He knows where the bones are buried in Hallis Hall, and I don't think he's afraid to go up to George or to whoever else upstairs and tell him to shut the fuck up and let me do my thing down here on the field. And Kevin Warren
would have to sign off on that.
Would have to sign off on it, but that's where I am. How can it be a first time? How can it be a first time head coach again? How can it be?
Well, but how could it be a retread after John Fox didn't work? I at some point in my life want to be as adored as Harbaugh is by Bears fans. I think he's at the right place, at the right where he should be, and I don't really see it. I just don't see it as a thing here. I just don't see it. I understand, the money he'd command, but if the Bears wouldn't even look at Sean Payton last year, and they wouldn't look at some of the strong voices, it's not a thing. It's not going to be a thing. And I think Jim has reached a kind of, like I said, you might as well just call him Hercules at this moment and create some stories. He was a pretty good coach that was carried by a Vic Fangio-led defense. And when that defense slipped, all of a sudden, so did his performance. I think he's good where he's at.
Yeah, and I just my overall point is Cars. I look at it and he comes into a situation where I think that the Bears are so bad and so awful. I think he brings respect. I really do, and that's how low you are. And let's be honest, there's more at play here with the Chicago Bears. They want to get this stadium deal done.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a name, and that matters to the general public that aren't massive football fans that,
Right.
that are going to see
They'll
their
recognize
taxes.
the name.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know, man. It's so bad and it's disheartening, and I think the list starts with him, and I honestly think that it should end with him. And I think that Johnson clearly will be a name from Detroit that's on the list. But it's just it's is it going to be Wanstead again? Is it the hot coordinator? Is it going to be Matt Nagy again? Is it the hot coordinator? Is it Mark Trestman that's been in the league, bounced around, hasn't gotten his chance, but he's the smartest man in the room, according to Phil Emery? That's, what sold you? He plotted the championship parade. I mean, is that anything? Is anything more Bears than that?
Well, I think though that we give too much of a run on some of the coaches that go, to second places. Like when you talk about the we're watching what's unfolding with Sean Payton right now. The Mike McCarthy Dallas is the same Mike McCarthy as he was in Green Bay. So many of these retread coaches don't work out. Bill Belichick is an extreme case of someone who failed somewhere else and came. But if you ask me right now, who are the best coaches in the league? It's the first-time head coach in Shanahan, first-time head coach in Sean McVay, first-time head coach in Mike McDaniels. I'm not a big fan, but everybody seems to love Mike Tomlin. He was a first-time head coach.
Well, that was the other name that was brought up because there's been, is it legitimate talk in Pittsburgh that he could have potentially, but I mean, then you're talking about draft pick compensation, and that's not anywhere that you can go.
Oh gosh, no, you can't. You're the way the season's going, you've got 2 top 5 picks. Like you can't be giving any of that up. When you just kind of look around and look at the coaches that are making differences, this is a younger man's game from a head coaching perspective now. It's a younger man's thing to relate to players. Jim's biggest problem was always once he had to pay the players and they felt more on equal ground instead of being a student, they started to fight back a little bit more, and Jim didn't appreciate it. That's always the number one concern with Jim is his relation to players on an equal level as opposed to
right. And there was
below.
issues with the GM
as well.
Yeah, that was the.
And
I think that was the big one because the GM is the guy paying them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think there's a yin and a yang to it, and it's going to be interesting. Is another thing that we talked about last night. If you approach Harbaugh, if you're Kevin Warren, who have the history, in the Big Ten and things like that, and you keep Ryan Poles as the GM, and Harbaugh says, well, that's not suitable for me. I want so-and-so in this position, or I want both roles. And that is what scares me.
You can't do it.
I agree.
Because you see it happening
totally
in Denver already too, with the way that Peyton is already
I agree.
taken over. and McVay had a long step at LA too. Yeah, you can't, and that's why I just keep saying it, at this
Cobra, no.
point. Yeah,
No.
that was a trade too, right? Gruden
Yeah.
was a trade from the Raiders to Tampa, or vice versa. So it was a little different, but it's just it's sad because you are looking to try to catch lightning in a bottle, and what we're really finding out is good head coaches are like finding quarterbacks in round one. The miss rate to hit rate is out of control, and you have to be really worried about how that looks.
Oh man, Brian Branch being carted off as the Detroit Lions are destroying the green team from up north, 27-3.
It is kind of nice to see.
Yeah, Rex Ryan. You could talk me into Rex Ryan as a defensive coordinator, but nothing beyond that. Maybe.
Guy hasn't been a head coach in what, 10 years now?
Yeah,
Or no,
I mean
8 years since he left Buffalo.
Buffalo. Yeah, no, as a head coach, no.
It's just a mess. Like you're better off taking a swing at one of these younger guys to see if they can relate. Because
and that's the thing, and this is where I will give Phil credit. It is about being a leader and being able to command a presence, cars, because is Eberflus that guy? Because right now, to me, he's falling in line of all these other guys where it's just bullshit with the way that he is. Oh, when you start telling me that how close you guys are in the locker room,
we have everything but in to show for it except for wins and a quarterback, Ted Phillips, right? Like we're that close.
Yeah, we're right there. All the pieces are in place, right? But it's just
no. You're absolutely right though. Matt is on that thing. Like I'm not one that sits down and says you have to sit down and scream and yell, right? Like I think some of that is overplayed from folks in our generation, Shane, because we are older, where that made a difference in motivating kids.
The enemy didn't get an interview this last time. I would
doubt it. Again, if his history does not bode well for him getting a chance.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people understand that.
Yeah, Bieniemy's past is not the greatest. It's now, to his credit, is in the very distant past, but the Bears are teams that hold on to that way more than others. But no, I think so. Again, I think some of this yelling stuff gets overrated, but there needs to be accountability. I think it was just the same with Nagy. When stuff got wrong, who were you holding accountable? How random of a player are you holding accountable? Right? Like Matt Nagy would let Anthony Miller just derail and Javon Wims just derail. We aren't talking like Khalil Mack going off or Akeem Hicks at that point. You're talking about like fourth and fifth string wide receivers, and you're not correcting that. What's happening in the field? What meetings and yelling is happening between the staff?
Yeah.
Matt minimally should hand over defensive coordinator position to Borgonzoni or someone else so that he can take over, because the issues on both sides of the field, he's got to one of the things we said, Shane, early was we're glad that he came in and said someone else is going to call the plays, because you need to be a coach and you need to be basically the president and not running anything else. Well, now shit's gone wrong, and now he's got to be focused majority of his time on fixing a defense. He can't get in that room.
No, and he made the comment, like you said, oh, no, I'm going to be more involved in offense. I'm like, dude, you can't coach the defense.
And that's the problem. So the second that had to flip, and he did not give play calling to somebody else, that was the first red flag. And I think now all of a sudden it's going. And if I see this name again, I'm going to laugh at you, because Chico's one of the most overrated head coaches in the NFL. If you look past 2 Carolina years where Cam Newton was incredible, the rest of it was not. It's not good for Chico. But who's holding Getsy accountable? Nobody.
No,
Nobody.
nobody. But I mean, Cars, just the optics of this when
And
you've
that's
lost
going
13
around.
straight.
You're
No,
going
and
around and fans are sharing this widespread. Your
it
own
should. I
fans.
mean, it's that is a big problem. And you may not think that it matters. Would you be excited if Justin Fields was out there laughing and smiling and telling you that we're a close-knit locker room and everything is fine? I respected the hell. I got more respect for Justin Fields when he came out and said that what's the problem? Coaching. I'm like, there we go. Thank you, Justin. And it lasted for 7 minutes. And then they called another presser, and Pearson said it was the most bizarre situation other than when a few years, 2018, when they had the sushi party and nobody emptied the garbage bags and the media showed up 2 days later into the room where all the rotten sushi was. He said it was the most bizarre situation ever, and they were scrambling, and Justin, backpedaled, and I'm like, no, man, I wish he would have sat on it and been, but that was very likely the organization saying you got
That's
to
a
get out
leader
there.
thing to do because when you do that, it quashes a lot of noise around the locker room, right?
It didn't though, man. It
Yeah.
exploded. Well, that day was bonkers anyway. But that's their biggest thing, Cars, by them talking around in circles, them chasing their tail. They create more drama. They create more questions, and they keep on trying to ram down your throat that just believe us. We're close, guys. I
And
looked into the players. I see it in their eyes. Get the fuck out of here, Eberflus. Get out of here, dude.
they're saying that though while the team is on fire basically behind them, and while they're saying that we're close and behind them, they're dumping more gasoline onto that fire to make it burn brighter.
Remember
And
the Naked Gun thing? The building's on fire and
nothing to see here.
everything's fine. Nothing to see here. And that's been Hallis Hall for most of our lives, unfortunately.
And what kills me is outside of Kansas City, the Bears very easily could have and should have won the first 2 games. Tampa didn't play great. Green Bay didn't play great. We just couldn't move on offense. If you look at drive charts of what happens in the middle and how bad it is, if we had some semblance of an offense, we're winning those games. And we would be sitting here 2-1. Worst case scenario, we would be 1-2.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're 0-3,
and you would have hope.
You're not picking them to win.
Oh God, no.
Denver. Yeah, I picked Denver 34, Chicago 21, because I feel like they can
score
make
20
some plays
points
offensively on them. But Cars, let's switch this over to the super chat. We'll get some of these answered real quick before.
Sorry,
we
I got ranty. I pulled a lot of.
No, it's fine.
Pills.
Carrie Franklin, who I think is our number one super chatter participant in all of our shows. Carrie, thank you so much. Loving this lineup, but must watch later. It's time to watch New Era in Chicago. Let's go Blackhawks. And I know that you've seen that shift even on Twitter. There, the excitement of Connor Bedard and the Bears kicking you in the nuts, and the Bulls being stuck in purgatory, which is the worst place to be in the NBA. And the Bears are who we thought they were and have always been. So thank you so much, Carrie.
Yes,
we appreciate
thank you,
Carrie. So Lawrence Chrisman, we need to boycott like we did the Bulls. And that's, it's good in theory. It just rarely works. Where you will see the crowds not show up is when you're in the doldrums of the season, where it's week 14, 15, and the weather is shitty. when you
Please.
bought your tickets and you have some young kids and it's 75 degrees on a Sunday and you're on the waterfront and your kids are excited to go and experience it and you're going to go have some fun. I get it. We have kids. I wouldn't want to deprive my kids of that and say, hey, we're not going to go because this is an inept franchise. It's family time, and that should be the number one for everybody. So it's good in theory. I just don't think you're going to see the crowds dissipate until later in the season.
With 17 games, people are going to keep those season tickets because of the waiting list, and when they're good, how quickly you can make that money back. So that's never going to be a thing. Like that it'll never happen, unfortunately, at that same level.
Absolutely. 100 Ben Frank, don't have your question there. While we're answering these others, if you want to throw your question in the chat and we will address it, but we totally appreciate you taking the time to send some super chat donation over. So thank you so much. Corn Planner, another guy that's amazing and always, participating in here. You appreciate us. We appreciate you, Corn Planner. Thank you so much. Like I said, we this isn't our regular 9 to 5. And I think a lot of people
I'm eternally grateful for that right now.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. We have young families and regular jobs and take time away from our families to do things like this because it is Cars is upset as we get about this. These sessions are therapeutic to me, and it's good to get it off of your chest and to talk about it. As pathetic as it is on Sundays to watch unfold, these things can make you feel better, and we want to inform you guys. We want to try to make you guys smarter fans and to appreciate the detail. When Eberflus says it matters, it does not to him. It matters to us. That's the devil is in the details, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to give you guys a blueprint. And like I said, I think we have a very good track record here at TTNL that we have no problem standing on. So Corn Planner, thank you so much. There's Ben. We should use DJ more like Debo Samuel. I mean,
I don't disagree, and that's how we started to sort of use him in preseason, and how quickly we've gone away from those things. I would just say, and I don't disagree with your statement, I would just say we should use DJ Moore, period. Like that should be a guy we should probably get the ball to.
Yeah, he's pretty good. And I understand, he had a big drop last week in Cars on that one image that you put up there. I believe I was pissed at him because it was well covered, but Justin put the ball and led him. And if he was running his normal speed, I think he has a legitimate shot.
100%.
Yeah. So that part did piss me off. But Ben, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Geo, or if he goes by Go, is our last one here. Love the show. Thank you guys. I hope things turn around for us soon. If you guys had to pick, is there any bright spot for this team besides the draft picks? And I would just say overall youth. And I think it gets cast aside with so much negativity around this team. I've seen plays from Jervon Dexter that get me excited about where he can go and what he can become. Is it perfect? No. Is there plays later in games, especially where he stands straight up and gets blown backwards? Yes. He needs to be in an NFL strength and conditioning program for a year for that to get better. And don't forget, he's younger than Jalen Carter. He's still only 21 years old.
And
he's only 5 years.
Or 5 years, yeah.
But that's counting high school. He's played football, organized football for 5 years. And this is his first year in the NFL. So there's an upside there. Pickens, I know people were bagging on him about his pass rush percentage being at 0. I've seen things that I get excited about. Things aren't going to be perfect especially on the D line. When things around you improve, who am I disappointed with? Hey, Justin Jones, go make a fucking play. I liked you last year.
DeMarcus Walker. Hey, yeah.
He's not an end,
Ngakwe.
Cars. Walker is not an end. We said it here. Push him inside. I just don't get it.
It's time. It's time. But I think you're right. Like, you list those guys. Darnell Wright, you should be excited about. A lot of the, I was excited about some of the things we're seeing from the corners. Yes, they're missing plays, but these are young guys with not a lot of opportunity, or not a lot of playing time yet in the professional setting. There's a ton to be excited. Well, there is stuff to be excited about. It's just really hard to do because, I'd love to say that I would know more about Tyler Scott right now. I have no idea why we're not seeing him more frequently if we're not using Darnell Mooney.
You didn't see him in the Cars. If I told you, what have we seen? One deep ball to Scott?
Yeah. Week 1 too, wasn't it?
Yeah, including preseason.
Oh, was that one in preseason?
No. I'm saying including preseason, we've seen one deep ball, and that you're right, week 1.
Yeah.
But if I told you that in April, or I guess was it May when we drafted him? But
no, you're right.
That doesn't happen with other teams, Cars. I'm just saying.
Just outside of DJ Moore, if you just stopped at what's happening or not happening with DJ Moore, but at the fact that I can sit down and go, it's also Chase Claypool, it's also Darnell Mooney, it's also Tyler Scott, and by the way, it's also Cole Kmet, because it seems like on every route he's got to block first, then release. So like everybody who hates him and hates the amount of money that he plays, he's extremely important, even though you don't love the numbers. What he does is there.
We talked about this. I know Phil and I talked about it. Cars, you and I have talked about it. That's who he is. You can use him in some spot duty outside. He is not an end. He's never should be a starting defensive end. He's an interior player. That's where he's best. Not in Chicago, because they're just smarter than everybody else.
And Dominique Robinson has looked terrible and continued to just not make any impact in a game playing.
And they gave Travis away for free, and it didn't make sense to me at the time that you're just going to say, all right, yep, okay, he's not a fit. We're going to let him. It didn't make sense then. It doesn't make sense to me now. He had a spot on this team, especially with the way that this defensive line is played. That's where I'm at.
That's crazy. Wow, we went long.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you guys.
Sorry, I went ranty. My apologies.
Oh no, that's all good. So DDP released his, if you're a TTNL Network patron, that posted today, where you will get the comprehensive breakdown, and he will show you the offense and the good, the bad, and the ugly. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot of bad, not as much bad as I think people were expecting for this past week, but there was still enough of it. If you're a patron on Saturday, there's going to be an X's with the O's when Phil and Coach O break things down on the other side of the ball defensively, and they will show you a lot of their concerns there. And then that brings us to Sunday. Again, if you're a patron, we will go live at halftime to give you our thoughts on the first half. And then the Monster goes live as soon as Bears versus Broncos is over. BHL Sunday late afternoon. As soon as Bears Broncos is over, Phil and I will go live. BHL, break it all down, have the presser for you, see what happens. Monday night next week, Poll Show is there. We're going to be starting a new show next week. Ivan Vargas, I guess I should have loaded his graphic. Ivan is going to be doing a show every Tuesday that's going to lead you in to the Keeping It Fantasy show, where if there's pressers or Bears news, he's going to keep everybody up to date on that. And then next Wednesday, it's Cap. It's coming back, Keeping It 100, and I know he's he's all fired up, and Cap is pissed off. So keep it locked and loaded here on TTNL. We're always adding content and expanding what we do. We have shorts coming out every single day for you guys. Participate in the super chats for all the shows. We very much appreciate that. I know, Cars, you can speak on that. You're appreciative just like everybody else is, but this is your show, Cars. Take it away with some last words.
Can we just start across the bottom? You texted me this, and I think it should be standard now that we just have the running banner across the bottom, the suicide prevention line number,
Yes.
until we win another football game.
Why you don't like these banners, Cars? Bears lay down in KC and lose 41-10.
If I have to look, if
you don't like these Cars, Bears fall to 0-2, lose to Tampa 27-17.
I'm gonna cry. It's no, but in all seriousness, thank you everybody. I appreciate that people come and actually watch this and listen. Really love the interaction. Thanks for the chat, and won't be a Keys next week since there's a Thursday game, but we'll pick up the week after that.
Yeah, maybe if the Bears surprise everybody Thursday night, who knows? Maybe Cars and I will surprise people if we have some time. I'm not making any commitments. We'll see.
All right,
Don't get ahead of ourselves.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Hey, love you guys. We're going to get out of here. I will pull this show and have the podcast version up here probably within the next 30 to 35 minutes for everybody. If you want to watch and listen to the audio and video podcast version of this. So other than that, Cars, I think we're out of here. Danny Downer, we're out of here, buddy.
We'll do it. Thanks, everybody.
We're going to get going. Justin, you're not the biggest problem. Might be that smiling person next to you. Gonna get out of here, man. Love you guys. BHL Sunday, Bears, Broncos. Let's get it.
Get the fuck out of bed, bitch. Go.